We'll call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just tonight, before we start this meeting, I'd like to remember Chuck Whedon, who was a former select board member that passed away recently. He served the community for quite a few years in a select board capacity, along with all the other things he did in the community. So, thank you, Chuck.
Is there a plaque with all the people who served as select board in overtime?
Nothing that I know of.
So,
Introduction of those present.
you go away.
So,
Can we get music on or something?
what's that?
No. Outside. Oh, alright. Okay. So we have Bob Jones, Mike Butcher, Jessica will be joining us, Perry Brown, and Rich Hewlett, and I'm Kristen Powers. And everybody else in the audience, I believe, is signed in. We'll get to know each other if we don't know each other. And online we have a Pawlett citizen, and if you decide to contribute this evening, we'll just need to have an introduction and Deb, the town clerk. And addition, Frank Nelson has requested to give a brief report on a conference that he attended during new business and no deletions. And the minutes that need to be approved are from May 30th.
Okay. Is everybody okay with Frank giving a brief? Okay. Approved. And that was the only change in the minutes, so.
Yes.
Approval of the minutes, or the agenda. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Perhaps second, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll give you the floor, Rose.
Alrighty, so I don't have anything new to report other than I met with Bobby on the trees. And so I was just wondering if you had any update on the air conditioning and the lighting upstairs.
The air conditioning I could speak to. I've been in contact with Jake, and he said that what he's been waiting for is he's got a high school kid that's helping him. So he needs the extra hand to get it down back, and since school's closing this week, he anticipates getting it, installing it that last week of June.
Okay.
He's aware that we have to have it in by I told him a 4th of July deadline, and he's aware of that, and he'll make sure that that all works. But he's just waiting for the extra help to do any work, and possibly we may need one extra hand from the road crew or something to get it down. So I told him that, you know, that would, if we need a little extra, I'm sure we could arrange it. And cleaning of the air conditioners, he's going to come Monday morning at 9 o'clock. I said that's when everybody gets here, right?
I can make a note and let them know.
I believe so. I think. Deb, are you here at 9 on Monday?
Hi,
Nancy, yes.
I can be here at 9.
Hi, yeah, yes, I think I'm planning on it.
Okay,
I don't know
'cause-
if I have anything scheduled.
Okay, Jake Williams will be here at 9 to do the air conditioning service this coming Monday.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he'll need to get in downstairs.
Yeah.
To hook that water up.
Thank you, Nancy. So
I-
that's what I got for the air conditioning.
And the lighting?
I did meet with Matt Corey the other morning. Yeah, I haven't seen a quote yet. He said he would put one together. He thought it would take about a day to do them. Now, I don't know if you want the chandeliers put up yet or just the side lights.
Well,
You want them all done? Because that's what I told him to quote out was everything. So,
I can't imagine you'd pay that much more having come the same trip as to make another trip down the road. And it would look nice.
okay.
If they were up. I don't know what your plans are for the continuing of the renovations up there, but
Yeah, I don't know either. I know they were, like Judy had said, trying to find a painter to re-put that symbol up there to keep the historical aspect of it up there. So that's gotta be done before anything can be painted around there,
right, so
so.
we'll sure would be, provide better.
But we can put the lighting up if,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, okay, that'd
Okay.
be great.
Yeah, he's gonna
So-
quote it out for all of it.
Okay,
And I see that you had written down the elevator light. Now, I'll check on that to see if,
oh, yeah, that was,
I had forgot
I'd forgotten about that too.
to see what kind of bulbs those are, whether that's something I can just change, someone can change out, or I'll have Matt look at them when he's here. So,
Okay.
Yeah, if you go into the elevator right now, it's very, very dim. So the guy that came to do the inspection was going to provide an email with the things that he was suggesting be done. But I think he left here and forgot about that. So anyway, I'm just kind of keeping it on the forefront because right now it's pretty dim going into the elevator.
okay.
So as I recall, Perry, that's, those are a fluorescent fixture. It might be better to change that out to LED.
Yeah, I was wondering if we need to change the whole unit
Sure.
light fixture out. I'll take a look at it and see.
And I didn't have anything else.
That's all? Okay.
I don't have an update on the trees.
We saved all the good stuff for you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. So we just, the only thing we did so far was discuss that the air conditioner will get put in probably in the very last week of June. Because he's
great.
waiting for his summer help, his high school kid, so.
Yeah, sure.
And he's gonna do the cleaning this coming Monday.
Okay.
And Perry has talked to electrician about the lighting getting installed, but he doesn't have a formal quote yet. So.
Thanks.
All right. So Steffanie. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, no, thank you for making space for me on the agenda. I'm here primarily to talk about your village pedestrian accessibility project that you received V-Trans grant funding to construct. And thank you for choosing to work with the Regional Planning Commission to provide municipal project management services for that project. So with our agreement in place, I reached out to Jessica to talk about, getting the project underway. You have the funds in place. Your grant agreement is in place with V-Trans. Your service agreement is in place with us for municipal project management services. So it's time to get started on what will be a multi-year journey. And I'm not sure, I've not worked with the town of Pawlett on a project like this before. So I really wanted to come down tonight and get a feel for whether you've gone through a V-Trans funded construction project before. Anybody?
Just roads specific,
We had,
like more highway projects, but nothing of this nature.
Bridges.
Okay, okay. So, this project is going to, probably take in the 3 to 4 year time frame, which is pretty standard for V-Trans funded construction projects. So we're gonna go through everything from procuring a design consultant and getting, plans for your project developed, to then, eventually bidding it and having it constructed. So in order to, get this project going, I need to have a point of contact with the town. So our first task will be, as I said, to procure a design consultant. And typically the way that's done is with a small working group of, municipal representatives, and your V-Trans project supervisor. I've not worked with Peter Pochop before, but I understand he's a great supervisor. He's got a lot of experience, so I think will be very helpful to guide from the V-Trans perspective. So I'm really here tonight to get a sense for who will I be working with.
Guess we need to decide that.
I mean, the previous scoping study, it was the Pawlet representatives in the working group were myself, John,
John.
and Jonas.
Right.
And John and Jonas aren't obviously
Right,
part of this any longer.
right.
I mean, I'm willing to, since I worked with the previous scoping
Okay.
study, I'm willing to continue on and work with Steffanie with this.
Okay, that would be excellent.
I
You'll
mean, I
be-
guess part of the question that Steffanie and I previously spoke about was, would the town want other members of the select board or anyone else to be involved with this? I mean, it's really a matter of, Steffanie can speak to it more, but it's really a matter at this point of getting a small group of people together to put out a request for proposals for a design person to design these sidewalks in this project. And then to not exactly select a person, but to propose someone and then bring it before the select board of who we might want to hire.
Right.
Really, is that
Yes,
basically it?
yes.
Yeah.
So, part of this conversation needs to include it, determining who I'll be working with as kind of a local point of contact, whether it's a single individual or a small working group. And what is that person or group authorized to do on behalf of the board? Are they authorized to prepare the request for proposal, or does the board want to see the proposal or the RFP before it is issued? Does the select board, do all the select board members want to be involved in evaluating proposals that are received for design services? Or would you like, a recommendation from those that the person or small group that you assign to review them? So there's some thought that needs to be put into how as a municipality you want to advance through the various stages of this project, and at what point, is the select board, would the select board like to be involved? Do you want to be involved in every step, just certain steps? I need to understand kind of how you would like to function in order to best facilitate this process for you. Because my role as municipal project manager is not to be making decisions on behalf of the town, but to guide you through this process, to make sure that, you're fulfilling all of the state and federal requirements and we're staying on schedule. Think of me as the person that will help keep your project on track. But I'm not making decisions on behalf of the town, if that makes sense.
Okay. So I'll put my opinion out there. I like the fact that you have been involved in it and are willing to kind of be the chair of the project to guide it through. It would be great if there was some community people or even anybody else on the select board that wanted to help you so that the burden wasn't totally on you. But I think it would be nice if the select board could just kind of approve each step as it went through. You guys prepared us request for proposal, and then we just looked it over, said, yeah, we like it, send it out. And then after you gathered all the information, you could present the information to us, and we could say, okay, this is the one you chose, but we could look at everybody and just have a little meeting and go the next step. And that way the burden wouldn't be on you either, that said, oh, you ran this whole project and you made all the decisions and we don't like it. It's a select board as a whole moving this forward. It's a better, I feel it's more supportive throughout the whole process.
And since the select board meets every other week, it's not like we would slow anything down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when the RFP was ready, the next select board meeting, the select board could look at
That's,
it.
that seems reasonable to me. Does that seem reasonable to you, or?
Yeah, I think we all ought to be involved. That way we can get input from the townspeople also on this, how they feel about it. And
Yeah.
bring everything together and,
I've got a question just in regards to like the design and then engineer phase of that. So is the design phase done by the state or is that, we hire that out?
You're gonna be procuring a private consultant.
No, how do we know who, I mean, we're
I'll
not,
guide you through that
Okay.
process. There's a
Same
couple
with
of different
engineering?
options. Yeah, but understanding what I think what I'm hearing is that the board is gonna wanna be involved in, these kinds of decisions. So that factors into the schedule that I'll be, developing to get us through each of these steps. So for example, the first thing that I'm going to do is schedule what's called an initial project setup meeting. It's where we go over the project, your goals, the purpose and need statement, make sure there haven't been any changes since your grant application, because that information will feed the scope of work and the project description in the RFP. And then we talk about, in general, the really long V-Trans process that you'll be working through so that everybody understands, the critical milestones along this path. And then will be, the first decision of that group will be which of the consultant procurement methods would you like to pursue? So if there's a choice to be made there, I guess I need to understand, is the select board gonna wanna make a choice like that? Or are you going to delegate some person or small group to kind of make those decisions to get you, an RFP or a draft RFP for review?
so if I can just ask a question. So is the design phase gonna be put out to bid as
Yes.
well?
Yes,
So every
everything.
step of the way is gonna be, there's folks out there, there's enough of them to get bids from them for the design, the engineering?
Yes, so
Okay.
it'll be one procurement for a design engineer.
Mhm.
They will develop your conceptual plans, your preliminary plans, your final plans, and your contract plans. They'll take care of all of the environmental and historic and archaeological permitting research that needs to be done. So yeah, they have a very well-defined scope of work, but it'll be, one design consultant for the project.
And how are we to know which group is the one that we should be going with other than price? Are some groups more efficient than others?
So that there are two different procurement methods available under these V-Trans funded projects. You can go out to a traditional competitive bid where you issue the RFP and anyone can bid on the project, okay? The second option available under the V-Trans funded projects is what's called V-Trans at the ready procurement. So V-Trans has taken steps to pre-qualify certain design and engineering firms.
Yeah.
So you can basically review the statements of qualifications for those 6 firms, narrow that list down to the top 3, do an evaluation of those 3 to select a preferred a preferred consultant, and then you could send an RFP directly to them. So, it basically does the work of determining qualifications on a potential bidder off of your table, and, the presumption is V-Trans has already determined that they are qualified to do the work and are familiar with the V-Trans process requirements.
Thank you.
Answer your questions, Rich? Okay. So how does the board feel? What's your rest of your opinions about how you want to handle this?
I think we should be all involved in the final decision of each phase of that. deciding, which firm to go with for the design, and then, deciding which firm to go with for the engineering, and the same with the construction of the project. That's my opinion.
So I am happy to also help Jessica and be a part of it, because I've also been a part of, just the communication and to help bridge the gap and get everything along to you all. But my other thought was, so since this is going to be something that's also going to be, my understanding when we were going through the whole application was that the highway department is going to be maintaining these. So do we think it might be a good idea to have, I mean, I know they're quite busy, but do we think it would be a good idea to have anybody from the highway department involved? Or do you think it's not necessary? I'm just thinking if we wanted to get together a small group, say like Jessica and me and Dale, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know, but that's just a thought that I had, since it seems like my understanding of it was that these ultimately then will be part of the highway department's responsibility for maintenance moving forward, the sidewalks.
So just to piggyback on that, if your highway staff has limited capacity, they may not be involved in the consultant procurement staff, but they most certainly, after you get a design consultant on board, think of this group transitioning into more of a steering committee for the project, who will be, providing information to your design consultant, answering questions, reviewing your plan submittals. So someone from your highway department most certainly should be given a heads up that they should be reviewing project plans and be part of that process.
Okay.
It's almost all on state highway anyway,
It's state highways.
right? So the town crew really doesn't have to worry about maintenance of it, or,
We're gonna have to maintain the sidewalks, though.
Maintaining the sidewalks, plowing the sidewalks, that was a big part about it. I thought, when we were, I
Yeah,
remember that pretty distinctly.
that was part of the letter that we had to write, which was saying that when we did these sidewalks, we would then maintain them.
Yeah,
So, I mean, obviously, the state's still gonna maintain the roadway,
right,
but we're gonna have to keep the sidewalks clear of snow.
yeah. So, it was just a thought, maybe, like you said, putting the cart a little bit before the horse, but just something to consider.
I can just picture the town crew going through and clearing the sidewalk, and 5 minutes later, the state crew coming through and plowing snow on the sidewalk, so that's just how it'll
It'll
work,
give us
but,
all something to
Oh,
talk about
I
when
mean-
the time comes.
It's another piece of
consider it, but-
equipment and another hired man is what it is.
Yeah, well, anyway, I don't wanna, I didn't mean to sidetrack, I think we're still getting back to the point.
No,
of how
I
we're
think,
gonna handle
I think
it.
the day-to-day decisions can be made by, in my opinion, can be made by Jessica. And if she has any questions or doesn't feel comfortable with the day-to-day stuff, she can consult with any of us, or we can call a emergency meeting together if there's more than 3 select board members. As far as the step-by-step decisions, the contractors, the quotes, that type of thing, we would make the decision as a whole. Whether it be something we can take care of at a regular meeting, but it's probably something that would take longer than that. We may have to have a special meeting once in a while to stay on task with it, or not, or in a timely schedule, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's a question.
So I guess we need to put that in the form of a motion then, if everybody's in favor, but that we'll vote on the progressive steps, I guess. I don't quite know the right phrasing.
Well, I think whoever you delegate to work with me is going to have to, that person or small group is going to have to guide me as to when it's going to be appropriate to involve the full board. Because I'm not getting a strong sense one way or the other.
So then I guess we vote for you to be in charge of this project as a select board, and then you bring the information back to us,
Yeah.
and we move forward.
We can put it in old business, to report back when it's
Okay.
on stuff.
I'll make a motion to put Jessica in charge of this project.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Well,
Great.
excellent, thank you very much. I think that's probably all I need for tonight to get started. So Jessica, I'll be in touch about a date for an initial project setup.
Yeah, and we'll be meeting then together with Peter, right, also, for the initial meeting? The initial meeting will also involve Peter Pocho?
Yes.
Yep, okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, great. Look
Thank
forward
you,
to
Stephanie.
working with
Thank you for joining us tonight.
you. Thank you, good night.
Kim?
So June 28th, we're doing a tax sale at 1 o'clock for 2 properties that were originally on the previous tax sale, but applied for the BHAP but did not get approved. So we just want somebody from the select board to be there at 12 o'clock on June 28th.
Okay.
It's the Mead/Mullen and Liberty McCullough. Liberty/McCullough. But they were denied for the BHAP, so we just need somebody there.
Now that gets posted in the papers.
Yeah, it's been in the papers for 3 weeks. Yeah.
I think Robert would do a great job with that. I'd make a motion to have Robert there.
Thank you.
Are you available, Bob?
I will be.
His employer just said he had time to do it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Who's the other house? Do you recognize that name? Okay, so that's that all you got for tonight, Kim?
That's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Any announcements?
Oh, yeah. Exciting announcement is that we are officially out of a contract with Schindler
Oh,
Big
yay,
Corporation.
finally.
After, I've had a reminder in my phone since 2018 to send them a letter. And I
Good
did
job
it.
being on top of that,
And
yes.
They still sent us a bill, and Julie contacted them and said, I will not ever pay this bill, and we've considered this contract nullified, and they said, okay. And big process, we resent them the letter, and so we're officially only down to one elevator inspection company here for the town.
That sounds like exactly the right amount of elevator
How
inspection.
much would it cost us to send a letter to everyone with an elevator to not do business with that company? They were
I know.
horrible. Oh
That
my
was-
God.
That was a long process, but that was an exciting, it was a highlight so far.
It was,
So well, it was it started in 2011 and it goes for 6 years. And the rule in the contract, the only way to get out of it was to send a written letter 30 days prior to the renewal of the contract. So we figured out in 2018 that it had automatically renewed in 2017. And we tried to contact them and they were like, no, so sorry, you're bound to it. So we've been stuck in it since 2017 and have had two inspection agencies, so. That's great success. That's one of my long-standing things I've been trying to do, so. It's one exciting announcement.
Okay. Zoning administrator.
Hi, so we're up to 16 permits for the year. I attended Rutland County Zoning Roundtable, I think it was a week and a half ago. I have scheduled to take part in the VLCT virtual 2-day zoning. It's tomorrow from 9:30 to noon, and then the following week also 9:30 to noon. But it'll happen during my normal office hours, so it won't interfere with my work
Okay.
schedule. We have 2 conditional use permits scheduled for a DRB hearing on June 28th. I'm working on short-term rental ordinance registration with the Planning Commission. It's also been brought up in that Rutland County Roundtable. It's a big hot issue in all of Vermont on these Airbnbs. So it'll be something I think that we need to address down the road. And then finally, I don't know if this really falls into my bailiwick, but I've received a number of inquiries about parking in front of Mac's store. I did pull their permit to find out what he was permitted for as far as parking spaces, what the need for parking spaces there are. He's in compliance as long as he doesn't add his restaurant space. But I'm wondering if any of you have driven down on a weekend, there's cars parking every which direction, whether or not we want to consider possibly striping in front of his stores so that the cars know which direction they should be parking in. The other issue too that's happening is across from where the parking spaces are, is where that no parking sign is, that cars continually park in front of that no parking sign, that little pull-out. So I'm also wondering if we need either a bigger no parking sign or stripe that off. And then finally, the other place that there's a parking hazard there is up by where Gib has the picnic tables, which is also supposed to be, from what I understand, a no parking issue, because if you're pulling out of School Street, trying to go north on Route 30, you can't see a thing if there's a vehicle parked there. So again, I don't know how we can go about it, but I'm wondering if striping or marking that parking area is an option to alleviate some of the issues there.
Anybody got any input on that?
Well, parking's definitely bad there. I mean, that's part of that intersection is part of the whole issue that we are dealing with the sidewalks. But when we're not on Route 30, on School Street would be ours to stripe if we wanted to, right? We have the authority to do that.
And especially, as I said, across from the parking areas, to strike out that no parking zone. Because there's that little sign and you see cars pull right in front of that little sign and park there. And if you're coming down, if you're trying to come down School Street and there's cars parked in front of Gibbs and a car parked there, a fire engine or an ambulance or even a big truck would never be able to make it through that space.
How do we reinforce the non-parking and the non-parking zone? Is it something we need to have the constable involved in, or do we need to do something to?
I'm not familiar with this permit or anything like that, but, so must be when the town gave him a permit. All that parking is in the town's right of way, I'm assuming, right? I really don't understand how it all works up there. I'm not familiar with it, but.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, what the measurement is from the center of the road.
How does the permit read, Nancy?
I have to pull the permit, but I think he was actually, it's grandfather, those parking spaces in front of the store are grandfathered. Because in the permit, it does talk about so many allowable spaces in front of the store.
So is there like a measurement, so if he wanted to paint his parking, the parking spots, he could do that?
He can't because it's town. It's still a town road, even though he has.
He's been grandfathered in though, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's grandfathered in?
I'm sure he'd be happy to paint it if you
Yeah,
wanted to paint it, but.
I mean, I would think if that's grandfathered in and it used to be painted, if it's grandfathered in, paint it again, in my opinion. I mean, that would be my understanding of grandfathered in. But maybe he didn't paint it before, I don't know.
I don't know either, but
Yeah.
I guess if you told him he has permission to paint it, he'd be happy to paint it.
Chris, you had a opinion?
If you paint the center line down that road and they park in front of the store, they would take up the whole lane by parking in that. So I don't see how you would be able to, I'd love to see you do it, trust me, but I don't think it would work.
Are we talking about painting the center line or about marking off
I was
where the
talking
parking
about
lines
marking
were?
diagonal spaces in front of the store, so that, because when you come down through there, and Chris has pictures of it,
Mm-hmm.
there's cars parking diagonally northbound, there's cars parking diagonally southbound, so, and some aren't pulled to the curb.
I mean,
It's just-
personally, I think,
3 cars this week alone.
personally, I think it should be parallel parking, but I don't think that would fly for various reasons. But, I mean, parallel parking would make more space in the roadway.
I can
Mike.
pull the permit and see exactly what it says about the parking, but I had investigated it first because people were inquiring whether or not it was allowable to park in front of the store, which it is.
Mhm.
And then, as I said, whether or not he required additional spaces, and he does not until he opens up that back space, if he ever opens up that back space.
Yeah, just from, if I can just quickly pop on my planning commission hat here. Permits, the bylaws do require a certain number of spaces per size of a business. And probably what's grandfathered in is that his business should have had a certain number of parking spots, but it's probably grandfathered in that he only needs the amount of parking spots that he has. Because normally, a business of that size would require more parking spots.
Frank?
I had been, everybody's been thinking about this for years. And so I had a little idea, and I postulated some emergence in the area, because there's also an absence of parking. Adequate parking for the restaurant, everything going on. And I asked Scott first, I said, what about taking and making that roadway past the store into one way, and have another roadway so a circle goes around the real estate essentially. So you have a circle, but it's not a traditional traffic circle. So then you have one way in. So the only way you can get into that roadway is drop one way in past the store, and then you get up onto Route 30 someplace further down.
Okay. That's a whole
That's a whole future.
different
That would
complicated
solve it.
project
That would
than
solve
what
it.
we have right now.
That would
Nancy?
solve it.
I mean, I don't want to take up any more time
Right.
with this, but, so I will pull the permit. If you want to discuss this at the next meeting, we can look
Yes.
exactly what it says as far as the spots and who has responsibility for maintaining those spaces in front of the store.
And
Okay.
if I may, I'd get Gibb involved as well. I mean, he's been there for decades, you know, get his opinion, and just get him involved in the conversation. I would think that'd be best.
Yes?
Isn't the store jointly owned by Doreen and Gilbert? So shouldn't the conversation happen between 2 people?
Right.
Well, they're a married couple.
The store owners, what he means,
Account.
okay. Yes, we'll discuss that with the proprietors and move forward from there. Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm Ruth Byrne. By the way, my apologies for being tardy. I was doing other things.
Okay. Any other questions for the zoning administrator? Yes?
Is there an accurate and up-to-date map of Pawlett proper, downtown Pawlett, of who owns what?
You would go on the GIS online. If you go on the website, you can
Access to
find
the
it.
internet?
It's in the assessor section of the online.
But is there a hard copy somewhere?
Is there, excuse me?
Back in the day, they used to print on paper.
Yeah, I don't believe there's one printed on paper at this point.
Don't you think that's a little reckless? Or just,
Oh, it's all backed up.
is it?
Yep.
Okay.
It's,
What's
you
the
can come
website?
in.
It's in the town of Pawlett website.
Okay. Planning commission report?
Not this time.
Not
No.
this time. Road foreman.
Yes. Hold on just a second. Okay, I have one from Dale. Okay, so he just let me know that two of the 3 speed signs have been reinstalled. One was on Kelly Hill and one was on Rupert Mountain. Frank, are you
Frank,
there?
please.
The other one is currently trying to be revived because it wasn't functioning properly, so we're trying to troubleshoot that. But it was knocked down this winter.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're working on that. So work continues on Wade Hill Road. Work continues on Wait Hill Road, and they're focusing on clearing and prepping for the application of slate on the roadway. Roadside mowing has begun and will continue through the coming weeks. The town's international truck is still broke down. There was parts that were ordered and they were the incorrect parts. The foreman and the select board liaisons are gathering pricing on new trucks. Currently, Dale and I are working on preparing to apply for a V-Trans Highway Safety Improvement Grant, so that's due on the 16th, and that's the one for the North Pawlet Road and Route 30 intersection, so that's going to be applied for. And then also we're planning to sit down on Thursday to talk about grant funding through the MRGP for resurfacing of hydrologically connected roadway segments. So that's what I had. I don't know if there's anything else.
You covered it.
Anybody have any questions?
Not exactly a question, but I recall a couple years back, we were talking about having a written rotation of how old the different vehicles were and when we were planning on getting new ones. And I know we're planning on getting the one new truck now. Is that something that, because it was always something that I think Keith had in his head. Is that something that the road foreman would be, or the liaisons would be able to pull together at some point?
The rotation?
Yeah, like the rotation.
Yeah, and so I think and Bob could speak to this, but I think what they were doing is they were borrowing money on a truck. And then as soon as it was paid off, they were getting rid of the oldest one and getting another one.
Right.
And last year, we paid one of them off, but we had just bought that tractor and a couple other little things, so we were short on funds. And the price of trucks almost doubled. So we weren't in a position to buy one.
Well, also there weren't any trucks available, right?
That's
And then-
correct, yeah. And now they're becoming more available. We've got one that we're gonna look at. A dealership's gonna bring it up and we're all gonna go take a look at it. It's a cabin chassis that we're gonna have set up. But they are becoming more available. We haven't talked prices yet. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that there was at least one truck in New England that was available. And it probably won't be available for long. But we'll get some pricing on that, and we'll see if there's any difference between ordering a truck, see if it's any less money to order one than the one they have in stock. I doubt that it is, but there's also opportunities for us to work with, like HP Fairfield and Viking. They're actually buying cabin chassis and they're setting them up, ready to go out the door with the plow and the wing and sander and everything. And they potentially have a couple available as well, so there's a few different avenues, and they are more available than they were. I'm not sure the pricing's not gonna be any better, but.
So I'm just curious, but what's our second oldest truck and how's it holding up? I mean, because I'm anticipating that we're not going to be able to replace the next truck for what, like 10 years, 15, something like that?
Well,
It
we've
should
got,
be
there's
5.
at least we've got some mechanics available right now. And we can maintain them. I mean, we can make them work if we have to, if that's what we're forced to do. We can repair them and fix them and rebuild them and paint them and sand them. We don't have the time to do that, but if we're forced to do that and that's our only choice, we're not gonna be left without a truck.
Okay.
I have a
International's
question.
15 years old, right? And 16 years old, so that would be the one that would be scheduled to.
Yeah.
That went to a backup truck, and that would be scheduled to be, to go in a new frontline truck, and everything progresses back.
I have a question on that, though. I think that our equipment appropriation should double because it hasn't kept up with the cost of everything that we have. And I'm not sure, I don't think the taxpayers would find that.
Because then we end up having a heavy bill, because in previous years, we used to be able, our equipment appropriation would basically upfit the truck.
Basically, yeah.
So we could buy a cabin chassis, and we had money enough to upfit it, which the last truck was like $80,000, but I don't, it's not gonna
them
happen
days
that
are
way.
gone.
This-
I'll have some pricing for the next
Them
meeting.
days are gone.
But
Yeah.
I agree with you, Perry, that's something we
I don't
really
think our
gotta.
equipment appropriation has kept up with
Right,
the
and
cost of
and
everything.
unfortunately, we just started a new budget, but come November, we'll keep
Yeah,
that in
we'll have to
mind, we'll have
discuss
to,
that,
we'll be
yeah.
more realistic about that.
And, before this big increase, you could bank on, 2%, 4%, 3%
Yeah,
increases.
an inch, yeah.
Not 40%. So, yeah, that's a challenge.
And it's not only the trucks that we need to consider
Yeah.
too. The loader's getting pretty old and,
And parts and fuel and, you know, we had to increase the fuel and a bunch of other things last year too, due to that, so.
but yeah, at least have a list of the age and hours of every piece of equipment would be of value for us to see once or twice a year, I think. So, Frank?
Yeah, I would say it later on, but I'd say this now, is that Vermont and New Hampshire have clean diesel grants. Remember that Volkswagen settlement, where there's money coming in for that? And its criteria, a bunch of it, has a fit, like replacement within 2 years or something like this. And, but there's people you can talk to, Lee Martin in Vermont, administering that, and with clean diesel, like New Hampshire's gone with bio diesel, 20% biodiesel, 80% regular diesel, and seeing over 20 years of it. And
No
seeing-
way.
and seeing-
That stuff's too new. We can't depend on that.
No, this is-
Not in my opinion, I'll tell you.
20 years
Especially in the
New
winter.
Hampshire.
Not now, because then that truck has to start and it has to go.
Well,
That's all dreamland right there, that
All
paper.
of their vehicles for 20 years in New
Okay.
Hampshire.
Yeah, well, this is right now.
Everything. But
Thank you
if
for bringing that up. Anything else for the road crew? Good.
No, the mower's working good.
Yeah,
He's
the
doing a
mowing,
great
the
job,
mowing
Tom.
looks really nice. I've noticed they're doing a great job mowing.
Yep.
And I got a message, there's a guy in Middletown that bought a roadside mower to rent to towns. And he just sent it out that he'd bought it if we were interested in renting it, but, because he said that he knew how much they were. Assessor's report, we have the one from last week.
Yeah, they sent it last week. I think got some dates confused,
Right.
but you all have a copy of it on your desk. BTPIE, we've successfully uploaded BTPIE information to the grand list and from the grand list to BTPIE, so our 2023 grand list lodging should go fairly smoothly. We were granted an extension for our grand list lodging and plan to lodge on June 19th. Grievance is scheduled for July 12th from 1 to 3. Once we have lodged the final grand list, we will be working with ProVal to do the necessary upgrades so that CAMA will be compatible with BTPIE for the 2024 grand list year. Lisa will be working in the office one Monday each month and as necessary from home, and Karen will continue to be in the office on Mondays and alternate Wednesdays.
Anybody have any questions? Town clerk's memo?
Well, you kind of addressed two of the things that I had on my memo, so thank you for that. One thing that I didn't have on my memo that I wanted to mention is that the laptop computers have been ordered for the constables and also for the highway garage, so that they have an updated laptop there. I gave you each a copy of the survey that came in this week from Donald Johnson was the surveyor, and he thought that it would be of interest to the select board in the town that as part of the big survey that he did, it ended up being a complete survey of the town highway garage property. So he just, it's more of a FYI, it's there. He thought that it would be of interest to you. That's all I have, really, if anybody has any questions.
So I guess, Rich, you were kind of involved in this, is everybody happy with this? The way the property lays, this survey came out? I know there was questions of whether,
So this is the first time I've seen a survey, just when I sat down here tonight. So my understanding, by looking at this, yes, we own what we thought we owned, so that solves that problem. I'll talk with Donald and get more involved with this and get a handle on it and go from there, but this is the first I've seen of this survey.
so it appears that there's no conflict.
Right. not what
Yeah,
we thought initially.
It just came in today.
Okay,
The Mylar is sitting in the office to be hung in the plat map, so Rich, if you want to come in sometime, or any of the board, I mean, the whole survey map is 2 pages, 2 sheets. So anyway, he just thought it was interesting that the survey that he did ended up being a complete survey of that little piece of town property as well.
thank you. Yeah, I'll be in to look at it.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Deb? Thank you for joining us tonight, Deb.
Yep, thank you.
Treasurer's memo.
There are 2 warrants this week. Payroll is $8,887.43. Accounts payable is $39,242.40. General fund money is $18,884.29. Highway fund money is $22,261.58. Wastewater fund money is $6,983.96. Julie has contacted the locksmith that rekeyed the library to set up a time for him to do the same at the town hall. We'll update when there's a date. Still no news. We'll call again next week. Any news on being able to use the AC? Monday.
You can tell that it was hot in here.
It's been hot this week. The final wastewater collection date has passed. Julie's waiting for payments that are postmarked timely to finalize the collection numbers. This will be reported at the next meeting. The Meadowy School graduation is this Thursday, June 15th. She has left the award and a card to accompany it for signature of the board. Thank you, Perry, for presenting. And submitted by Julie Mack. The 2 motions are for payroll warrant 23066 for $8,887.43 and accounts payable warrant 23067 for $39,242.40.
I'll move that we approve those 2 warrants.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay. Here's the card.
Oh, that gives Bob and then I'll send it down.
Can I borrow someone's pen? Thanks, Perry.
Guess I better take that with me, huh?
She asked me to remind you. to read it.
All right.
I'll put it in my truck and it'll be there.
There you go.
Then I'll only have to run from the school back out.
That's right. Stick with the sun visor.
Send my pen back down, would you, Rich? Thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Emergency management?
Yes. So Bob Morlino sent a report from the month of May. The first meeting of the Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Group has been set for June 26th at 6 p.m. at the Town Hall. The group participants will be Bob Morlino, Jessica Van Nort, John Weiss, Dave Ricard, Dale Decker, Jay Lukey, Leon Corey, Jackie Becker, and Paul Luciano. The town of Pawlett received closeout letters from FEMA for previous culvert projects. a passive grant was awarded to the Town of Pawlett Volunteer Fire Department and the West Pawlett Volunteer Fire Department for safety equipment. The grant was for $3,234.42 and is 100% reimbursable. Bob Merlino attended the state LEPC, which is the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and was named chairman of the state of Vermont LEPC. And Jackie Becker continues to work on enlisting people for emergency shelter staff.
Anybody have any questions? All good, thank you.
And Jennifer Sullivan's health officer report. So there was a report from the state about a rabid fox in West Pawlett. No details were provided about where the fox was found, shared to social media and Front Porch Forum as was recommended by the state epidemiologist. Ongoing situation regarding the camper on Route 153 in West Pawlett. Tenants dismantled their outhouse a few weeks ago but have since put it back up and are using it. The state is aware and Mr. Lokes is preparing to refer it to the DEC attorneys. However, the property owner is now pursuing legal means to evict the tenants. Nancy Morlino can provide additional information if needed prior to Jennifer's return on the 18th of June. A failed septic pump led to a septic release into a storm drain in the Pawlett Village area. The responsible party has secured a contractor to repair and replace the pump.
Okay. All good with that?
The rabies was across from my house, across the road behind Johnny Folger's down in there by the river. James saw it and was acting crazy in the middle of the day up the lawn or two above him. And then it disappeared and he heard a shot and he thinks that was probably the animal right in the village.
Right in the village there, okay, thank you. When we went over the contractors, we didn't do the slag policy, probably should
Oh, I
have.
had it in old business, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't look down far enough, I was thinking we should have done it, okay.
In highway, yeah.
We're almost there too, anyways. Wastewater, I haven't heard anything, everything seems to be okay. Facilities report,
I have not heard anything. All glad at the library?
everything, I guess locks are the only thing right now, you're working on lights and we'll go from there. Meadowy School District, not this week. Now we're back to slag policy.
So, I made just a couple, I don't think I have a copy, but I just made a couple changes. So instead of using the word quarry, I changed it, I talked to Dale about it, and I know Bob and Rich had the same feedback, but I couldn't remember what they had said, but I changed it to slate rubble pile, I think, or
Slag pile.
There was also a question about whether it wanted to be called a slag pile policy, or if we wanted to change it to slate rubble, or I don't know, it's all kind of fine print, but we changed it away from quarry because Dale clarified that there's not digging into the ground, there's not quarry activity, it's more just piles of slate rubble that's on top, and when you call something a quarry, there's a lot of other state entities that might get involved with safety regulations. Not that we don't want to have safety there, but it's just, it's a different animal. So I made that change. And other than that, it was just the other changes we had talked about. I called it a policy instead of a memo, and changed the contacts to be a little bit more vague, just saying that whoever wanted to haul from there needed to talk to the highway department foreman or select board liaisons and/or. And I didn't list specific names.
I've just got one question though. When I read the first line, maybe it's just me, but it sounded like that the town was loading and hauling. Rather you can bill them for time loading and hauling, or maybe, did I just reread?
I just completely copied and pasted off the
Okay.
old one. I didn't write this, so I can't really speak to the structure of it before, so I'm no hard feelings if you want to completely tear it apart and change it up to make it make more sense to how we actually do things. I think this was quite old, I don't know.
Just the way that I read it, it sounded to me like that that we were billing and loading
We can
also,
bill them
but
in kind service, right?
Well, I think what.
if they're
what
using their
Harry
own equipment, but the town's not gonna load the residents or haul the material for them.
Right.
But if you, Perry Wade Excavation, go and you dig the material out of there, you can't sell it to Kristen, but you can't sell her the material, but you can charge her for the trucking and the loading.
Oh,
If you
okay,
bring
okay, that's
your own-
what that, okay.
The
Right.
So I
contractor.
could say rather contractors can bill.
Nobody would
Okay,
know what we're
this-
talking about if we
okay.
called it rubbish, would we?
All right.
I think it was a
All right.
dump.
The slag cannot be sold to the residents, but you can,
So maybe
you can
that's-
bill them for the,
Loading and.
yeah,
So-
loading and trucking it
How
for
about
them.
slag is not to be sold to residents, rather can be billed for time
Right.
loading and hauling?
By the contractor or something, I don't know.
Just say
something-
rather the contractor can bill you for the loading and hauling,
Yeah,
not for the material.
it's just, when I read it, it sounded like.
It's just
that-
not
that the-
clear that it's,
That the
there-
town would be loading and hauling it for you.
and all this is referring to the contractor.
Yeah, okay.
So what would say something like slag's not to be sold to residents, rather the contractor can bill residents for time loading and hauling, but not for materials?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, that's basic.
yeah,
It's a little longer, but I think that's clearer.
yeah.
Okay.
But other than that,
The only thing that got, why is it safe? The final line, I suggest we take away those scare quotes from around safe, because that sounds like we're being sarcastic.
Relative term, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
so.
sh- I would say just safe, just without
Great.
quotes.
Leave it safe, period. No quotes. Great.
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
other than that,
Somebody wanna make a motion to approve it?
I will,
Do you have a second?
with the changes we just made.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Would you like to sign a copy, or do you think just having it printed, I'll print out an updated one and it can just be on file?
I don't, it was adopted June 13th at the meeting, if they wanna see who was there and who was the select board where they could go that extra step, but as long as it was adopted, I don't know why we need to sign it too, I guess. Old or unfinished business besides that?
I don't have anything.
Anybody else have any? New business.
Frank's.
Chris?
Well, Frank was requested.
Excuse me?
Frank
You can go- you
requested,
can go.
Oh, Frank.
but that's,
I'm sorry. Chris, if you could wait, we allowed Frank to go at the beginning of the meeting. He came to us. Thank you.
The,
Frank will be quick.
he said brief.
yeah, I'm
well, we
covering
said
3.5
we said
hours.
5 minutes.
I said I'd probably do it this quick.
And it's 8:05, so at 8:10, I will
There's not a lot
tell you
new
it's
here,
time to stop.
except for in some cases. The Rainier Fleet thing was held at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway with the, all in the infield with whole parking lots full of everything from garbage trucks to scooters that were either electric or alternative fuel. That's the key thing, the alternative fuel is what everybody's excited about. Electric too. And the speaking part of it, with the US Senator there, okay, was in the race car maintenance garages in the infield. And it was pretty packed. It's New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. And so they had a lot of keynote speakers that were officials, like the Senator, Maggie Hassan. And then they went into topics of covering the bases on fuel, electric fuel efficiency, the thing, and it went from small cars. And everybody's seen the small cars. You know what's out there. It's that lithium-ion battery. But really what they're excited about is an upcoming sodium-ion battery that's going to be far cheaper, it's salt-based, and it doesn't have the fire risk. That's about the summary there. But it's evolving. They have developed these batteries, but it isn't in there yet. And the charging facilities, that's happened in the funding area, is that the money that's only available is enough to do all the highways and byways, the main byways, make for free to get them out there. Because believe it or not, tourists have EV cars. So Vermont wants to service the tourism industry by having these EV stations. And, but there'll be some money left over for rural places like Pawlett or wherever to apply and maybe scoop some of that funding for an EV station. The speakers, the big thing was this stuff called the renewable propane for all kinds of vehicles. And they had showed pictures of Cummins as a propane power plant that Peter built, and a whole bunch of them are playing around with right now. It's not available. But it will be, because it looks like a good option versus battery option, obviously. And then they're going to, then the real, what the holy grail is hydrogen fuel cells. That's not even in the horizon yet, but there are companies working on it. In fact, Toyota just released their patents a while ago for filling station designs, 5,000 patents or something, for free use of everybody for the hydrogen future that they consider. So everybody says the future, ultimate future, is going to be hydrogen. The only thing that's byproduct is water. So the keen guy with his biofuel fleet for 20 years, he went on and talked about that and how big benefit was is that the engine maintenance versus straight diesel, by adding 20% biodiesel to it, was a huge savings for them. For some reason, they just don't have the maintenance issues that they have with straight diesel. And it doesn't smell. That's another thing. Cabot Creamery has gone, they're monitoring idle times, and they have a data statistician, which we wouldn't do, but just as a little FYI, where they're just cutting back on their fuel usage altogether through mileage maximizing and idle time. If you're idling a certain length of time, then you got to shut off, because then you're over the limit of which of their fuel usage they want it, which they want to allow for idling. They have management companies will do EV fleets, mostly all vans now. No, of course, some big stuff. They have propane and off-grid charging systems. In other words, mobile propane tanks with a generator with electric vehicle powering things, so you can take these around and put them in a lot of places, increase capacity in a certain area, emergency use, so a whole bunch of stuff like that. And also, if the power goes off, most of the EV stations will be equipped with propane with a generator and the power thing, so that people who, obviously, you can get some gasoline, and today there's a lot of cars, but some people who are EVs aren't close to power stations, so this would be a technology that can be trucked into places or be owned in certain places, mobile or non-mobile. There's
5 minutes, Frank.
funding. There's all kinds of money available, federal and state, for settlements for all kinds of equipment, including heavy-duty equipment. And there's people to talk to, see how much it is. And if you would opt to qualify for a big discount maybe on a truck, because there's a narrow window of green in the diesel area. It's a different thing. And for other equipment, they have training programs for charging and fueling, training programs, which can be paid for, infrastructure funding. They anticipate they're going to need, just for EV alone, 100,000 new EV techs, because if you have an EV car, and you take it to where you bought it from, chances are they're not gonna have somebody there who's gonna know all the wiring in it. So they have to ship it off someplace else. So what they're going to wanna do is train up the EV. They have such a lack of these people, it's unbelievable, that know the tech on these cars.
You gonna wrap it up, Frank, please?
Yep. And in the training area, the training would cover propane, compressed natural gas vehicle maintenance, repair inspections, and propane vehicle conversions, and also electric vehicle safety training, which is a big problem for people who are actually doing maintenance and working on these vehicles, is they may do the wrong thing, put themselves into hazards. And then it was also about the fire department issue, where none of the wiring is standard in any of these vehicles, and going with the jaws of life and cutting is 450 volts possibly, which is not a healthy thing. And also the lithium ion batteries are very flammable, and once one starts burning, you just can't hit it with water because it causes it to go up. So there's significant problems with lithium. And so the major talk was about those other sodium ion, propane, renewable propane, liquid natural, compressed natural gas, and ultimately.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Frank. I appreciate the fact that you went out to do this research.
The final thing was, there's a lot of people staying around after. It was like 3.5, 4 hours of talking, and then at around 1:30 on, you could go out and drive these vehicles around the place. And there was a lot of people who wanted to drive those really fast Tesla ones, because where you were driving them was on the racetrack.
Okay,
That was a long line.
thank you.
Cool.
Chris?
I feel very strongly that I've been wrongly accused for being in violation of zoning. And I've done my homework, and I've proved, and I got papers and everything else to prove that I was in compliance before. Apparently, the old zoning administrator didn't do his job and fill out this form. What can be done to solve this issue?
Well, unfortunately, the select board doesn't have control over the zoning administrator. They hire them, but the zoning administrator,
Who do I go to?
what?
Who do I go to?
The zoning administrator, we found out, is responsible, and if you're not satisfied with the results you get from the zoning administrator, you go to the DRB and then you go to the state. That's what we found out when we had a other issue about zoning and the fact that paperwork was supposed to be filled or not filled. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that with that issue came up last year, the steps that the person needed to go through were I forget what the thing was, but to make basically a written complaint to the zoning administrator saying what, was that it? Do you remember?
So I've spoken to the VLCT about this, and if somebody is not satisfied with the decision made by the zoning administrator, they file a written appeal. And
Oh, yeah, that was it, the appeal.
It initiates a judiciary hearing amongst the DRB, which my understanding is already scheduled for the 28th of June. At that point in time, the DRB hears the whole case, the whole kit and caboodle, and makes a determination. So that's the process as it stands, the way that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns writes it.
So what you're saying is even if I have proof, they can rule against me.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you, what I'm saying is that the process is to file an appeal, which I think has already happened. And then the DRB is a group of people that reviews everything. So I'm not saying what the DRB would say. I'm just saying what the process is.
I believe that if the DRB makes a ruling and that the person who is ruled in either direction still wants to appeal further, then you appeal to the state. Yeah, the select board actually is not a body that has the authority to make that decision.
Nancy?
Yeah, as the zoning administrator, I can tell you how it works, well, how I see it works through looking at the manual. And that is, when the zoning administrator receives a report by anybody, it is their duty to investigate it.
And you did not do that.
I talked to you on the phone, did I not
But you
call you?
did not come to
Listen
my
to me.
house.
Okay. Nancy has the floor right now, and everybody, please.
I called you on the phone and just told you that I had received a report, right? At that point, the burden of proof is on the property owner to supply the zoning administrator with whatever evidence they have to either prove or disprove the claim. So that's all that had to be done in this case, but, you know, and I found out that you, rightly so, had found in past bylaws that trucking terminal had been approved in that zone up until 2013. I also understand, well, I had inquired as to when your business started, because, you know, I didn't know how long you've been trucking for, so I didn't know if your business predated that 2013 date or not. I also had no paperwork that showed, even when it was approved prior to 2013, that a permit had never been applied for. And, you know, in that 2013 time. But there's also a limitation as to how far back we can go. So if you provide me in writing a notice that says, I've been doing this, and you have some sort of proof that tells me that when you started your trucking business, we can go back and see if you grandfather in. That's all that has to be done.
So, past registration?
I don't know what a past registration for a trucking is.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a registration, if you have a, I don't know, any business receipts that go back, you know, a number of years, I mean, maybe you can even tell me, I don't know how long you've been doing this, if you've been doing that for 15 years,
Like
20
this
years,
one?
30 years. Oops, it flipped.
Which one's that, Rich?
If you can just tell me the date on it.
That says June,
Okay, it keeps
that
flipping.
says the 13th, but that's not the oldest one.
June of 2013, which would have been back when that area was approved. Again, I still, even though when it says it's a permitted use, it means you need a permit for that use. It doesn't mean that it's just generally permitted.
I would like to speak to that if I could, just briefly.
Sure.
And so I spoke with VLCT in regards to permitted uses and went round and round and round and had a bunch of questions for them, and it was a great conversation. And my takeaway from permitted uses is they're uses that are allowed in that area, in that zone. So get rid of the permitted part, they're uses that are allowed in that zone. But there is times when you need a permit in a permitted zone, or like, you know, permitted use. And that is if that permitted use doesn't meet the setbacks of the town, or there's certain little criteria that maybe makes that property just, it doesn't meet the setbacks, you know, or
It's
some
an
of the
exception, that's what
qualifications.
you're saying.
Right, so then in that case, a permitted use then would need a permit.
That is not what that office has been doing. I'll tell you that every time that if it says permitted use,
It means it's a
always
use,
required a permit for that use.
That's guidance.
they're uses that are allowed.
Yep, they're allowed uses.
And
With a
they don't need,
permit.
it just means you can do that in that zone without a permit. This was my takeaway.
Exempt
And see, this
uses.
is the problem.
Yeah, the language is
Everybody's got a
difficult.
different frickin' opinion. It's pathetic, really. But my takeaway was very clear. In permitted uses in that zone, they are uses that are allowed in that zone without a permit. Conditional use, you need to get a permit and go to the DRB and
Yep.
but there is cases when a permitted use needs a permit, and that is when that permitted use in that zone doesn't meet certain requirements. I mean, it was as clear as mud.
And Rich, I'm not arguing with you, and you're absolutely right. It depends who you talk to up there. Because I've had similar discussions, and they'll tell you permitted use means yes, you can do it, but it requires a permit. Because it's the only way that you have a paper trail of what's been allowed.
And I'll just jump in and say that this question of what permitted use means and what conditional use means as a planning commission member is something that has been confusing to lots of people over many years, and that right now we are working on a bylaws update and making that language clearer at some point to just say, in this document, when we say permitted use, we mean you can do it with a permit. That would just clear the whole thing up. But we need to add clearer language about it, I agree.
And if you do something different, you have to change your use permit.
Yeah.
But what
That's
as
right.
Nancy, I'd like, is there that many people out there that are reporting their neighbors for being in violation of all these?
You know, I'm new, so
I'm just wondering, because I've had a lot of people that have told me that they have been contacted by you, and I was just wondering if there's that many people, or how is this working?
like I said, I don't go around looking for trouble. But if somebody reports something to me, it's my duty to investigate it. And then I have to go by what I have in my files. And as I said, in this situation, I didn't have anything in my files at all on this property.
So,
Except I did have two outbuildings that
so Chris has showed you the bylaws that allow it, and he showed you the fact that he was in business when those bylaws were in place.
But, and I can talk to Chris about this afterwards, but if, I don't know, how long have you been in the trucking business? Since 91, so that gets him the 20 years. And if you can just verify that date, then he would be grandfathered.
Then he gets his paperwork. Okay. Because everything that you found, you didn't find any paperwork to back up. Okay. So we can't.
All I need from him is verification that he's been trucking since 1991. 93, so
Yeah.
it gets him in the
And then,
time frame that he would.
and then the paperwork is all recorded under his name and everything
All I
is,
have to do is he just has to verify when he's been trucking for, because he would fall into that the grandfathered clause. And then that paperwork would go into the file that said that, you know, he'd be grandfathered because of the time, and also during that time, that was a permitted use on that property.
okay.
Okay?
I can come down tomorrow, we'll all
You
still
can
be paid.
I will be here tomorrow.
Are you satisfied with that, Chris?
Well, I just want my name cleared from this, because that guy keeps driving by, and I don't wanna keep getting complaints.
Right. So you get your documents and then everything is,
What documents am I getting?
No,
when you, right,
You get them.
You get them, I get them.
right. Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll just, if I can just
Yeah.
make the comment I want to make is, I'm glad that we have a zoning administrator who wants to dot the i's and cross the t's. Because I know in the past, we haven't always had a zoning administrator who went by the book, and that has not always worked out great for us. And so the fact that in the last couple of years, we've very much been going by the book regarding zoning, I think is going to serve us well in the long run.
And accurate documentation for our records.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Very small set of circumstances that has been issued.
Any other new business, or? All good? Do you have anything to add, Keith, or you just come for the?
Just to wash the surface.
Okay.
Not that much of a circus.
Public comment? All right. Who gets the honors tonight?
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you all.